All right. Good morning, Doug. Merry Christmas. A little belated. We're now the Friday, what is it? 27th today. So,
So unbelievable. Yes, and Merry Christmas to you. And I always like to wish people a joyous winter solstice as well.
it was Kwanzaa yesterday. We missed it. Kwanzaa yesterday.
Kwanzaa, the totally artificial sop to Black people in the U.S., created by a racist in 1966, I think. And I don't believe anybody, including any self-respecting Black, celebrates Kwanzaa. But
Well, I know one person who does because I saw it on, the only reason I know it happened is because on Twitter, I saw my former governor, the totally terrible governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, doing something. I thought it was a parody, like while everyone's celebrating Kwanzaa, want to talk about the unique blah, 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 blah. It's so ridiculous. But so he, I think, was celebrating it.
yeah, that's insane because they're probably, I don't know which state has the smallest population of Black people as a proportion, but Colorado is certainly one of them. It's
No
crazy.
doubt.
Anyway, yeah, Kwanzaa. And of course, Hanukkah, it's this is the first time in 100 years, I think, that the Yuletide season overlapped for a day. Exactly. They always fall about the same time of the year, but with Hanukkah. So I guess that's kind of a big deal because let me see, what is the number? There's about 6 or 7 million Jews in the U.S., which is about 2% of the population. But should Kwanzaa be more important than Hanukkah? Because 15% of the U.S. population are Blacks and only 2% are Jews. We hear a lot more about Hanukkah than we do about Kwanzaa. Hey, that sounds like subtle racism to me.
Could be. Could be. Well,
And in the future, we'll talk about this more when we have Giant Bandari on the show to talk about the ascension of the Indians, the red dot Indians, as opposed to the Pocahontas Hiawatha Indians in North America. They have Diwali, which is kind of, I think it's kind of the big Indian holiday. I helped celebrate Diwali when I was in Sri Lanka a couple of months ago, for what it's worth. I never paid attention to it before then, but when you're on the spot, when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do, as it were.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm going to ask Giant to come on next week because I'd like to get his comments on this H-1B visa kerfuffle that's happening now with Trump appointing another Indian to his cabinet as an AI advisor, and people didn't respond well to it. So anyway, I will say that for when Giant is here, but it's worth talking about, I think, the situation with these Indians and the visas and this legal immigration.
Yeah, we're talking about the red dot Indians, not the powwow Indians at this point. God, you can't say these things, I guess. It's considered to be politically incorrect, but frankly, I don't give a damn. And the fact that things are considered politically incorrect, to me, is really stupid. And people, anyway, we can get into that when we have our favorite red dot Indian on with one of my favorite people, actually, Giant.
Yeah, he's awesome. So you were telling me about you were reading in the newspaper today, digitally, about the death of someone that you had some association with.
Yeah. The New York Times informed me that Desi Bouterse died. Now, I don't know how many people that are listening or watching right now. Desi Bouterse, who's he? Well, let me tell you a story about Desi Bouterse, because it's really kind of an interesting story. He was the military dictator of Suriname, the old Dutch Guiana in South America. And I spent a lot of time in Suriname and a reasonable amount of time with Desi Bouterse, the military dictator. And let me tell you the story, because I think it's kind of an interesting story. There was a friend of mine who was an ex-Air America guy, and always hung around with other spooks. And so we were pretty friendly. And he knew my interest in running around to these third world countries, trying to pitch the government in various third world countries on a radical plan to turn around their dog shit countries and make it into a new Singapore. I won't go into all that, the details of that plan. I have previously on this podcast, but I won't now. So anyway, Patrick knew this was my interest in third world countries. And he was working on a contract with the military government in Suriname to train a Praetorian Guard for them. So it wouldn't just be a bunch of people dragging their FNs around by their barrels, but it would be a competent force. And word spreads quickly in the spook and murk community. And Patrick, who was living in London at the time, gets a call from a guy named Ted Bishop. And Patrick imitated Ted's accent on the phone when I'm talking to him from London. And Ted says to Patrick, says, Mr. O'Connor, I understand we're on the opposite side of a little situation down in South America, and I think we ought to get together and have ourselves a powwow. So they decide to get together at DFW, where Ted had a suite, and Patrick invites me to sign me up. So I was living in Aspen at the time, and I flew down to DFW and meet these two guys. And I'm introduced to Ted, and I'm just sitting there. And they're talking about, it's obvious, they could switch positions easily. They don't really care.
Just so I understand, one of the guys is sort of trained the Praetorian Guard for the current government, and the other guy...
That was Patrick, and Ted was trying to cut a deal with the U.S., the British, the Dutch, and the French governments, all of whom are kind of involved in the area, to get a staging base and get some free equipment and all that to overthrow the Baderseh government. And Baderseh was known in the country as the commander. Even though he was a colonel, everybody called him the commander. Okay. So that's who they are. And later, through connections that I had, I said, listen, tell me something about this guy, Ted Bishop. Is he the real deal? And I checked it out with my friend Peter Lund, who also runs in these Giustra. He's dead now too. He's the real deal. And it turned out that Ted later got killed when he was on some kind of an expedition to Africa. So anyway, those are the players. All right, so here I am sitting in this suite with these two guys. And after a while, Ted asked me, he says, Doug, why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself? And I did. And I said, now listen, Ted, I've been listening to what you're talking about here. But after you take over that country, assuming you do, you're going to be just back at the grindstone. You'll get some fees, you'll get some mining concessions, the usual drill, and then you're off doing the same thing again. Why don't you do something of world historic importance? And I explained my plan to reform the country to him. And Ted he listened carefully, and he liked it because he needed a plan, not just, the usual drill. And here's what he said to me. This is an exact quote. I remember it because it was just so brilliant what Ted said to me. He says, God damn, Doug, that's one hell of an idea. You know, them C-47s and miniguns, they'll be just as good the morning after as they are the night before when we turn that army into the biggest jogging team in South America. Let's cookie cutter this motherfucker and take the show on the road. So that was a rather ringing endorsement from Ted. So my next step is, I said to Patrick, after the meeting was over, I said, listen, give me an introduction because I'm going to go down there and check this out and see if it would actually work. And Patrick, very connected with the government, sets things up. And I fly down to Paramaribo on probably the oldest and crappiest 707 in the world from New York, Air Suriname. Don't even know if it exists anymore. I get off the plane in the airport, standing in the line, customs line, and a couple of guys walk up. They pick me out. It wasn't hard to do. And take me through customs and immigrations, just a military business. I just walked through. That's the way these things work, the way they should work. It was great fun. Take me into town and drop me off at the, what the hell's the name of the best hotel in those days in Paramaribo? Anyway, whatever it was. Whatever that hell. Anyway, so there I am. And the next step is, I start meeting some members of the government. Hadn't met Desi yet, but then I kind of grabbed the bull by the horns and started getting introductions to everybody who was anybody in Suriname, union leaders and religious leaders and athletic leaders and political guys, lots of them, ministers, military guys, everybody. I was working 10 hours a day, just talking to people and pitching them on this plan. And Suriname is kind of an interesting country because it's really a political snake pit. It's got 7 major ethnic racial groups. They got the Indonesians, who are Hindus. That's a big one. They got the, they've got the Amerindians, who are another one out there, still most of them out in the jungle. They got the Bush Negroes, who were blacks that ran away way back when, and lived like primitive Africans do in the jungles. You got the Dutch, naturally, who are still there. You got a Chinese contingent, which is still there. And you got the blacks, because a lot of these people are blacks also. And maybe I'm forgetting somebody, but they're all different from each other, and none of them particularly like or get along with each other. So I'm talking to all these people and getting really, everybody likes this idea that I'm pitching to, in essence, take the country public, and take all of the parastatal organizations and all the government's land and put it into a large corporation, distribute it to the people and others. Anyway, I could talk about that later. So, I went up the chain of command and got to know Baderseh and had private meetings with them and went to parties with them. And, he was an entertainer. Like one night, he put on a show in one of the theaters where he sang. He was very physically fit, good-looking guy also. He used to be a gym instructor back in and he was still very fit. And so I was seated next to the Russian ambassador, and we were both talking. It was wonderful being a big deal personality in Suriname. So anyway, that's what happened. And I thought, well, okay, now everybody in this country has heard from me what we can do to radically reform this country and make everybody wealthy the way Singapore or Hong Kong became wealthy. Even though it was a snake pit and they were all worried about what somebody else was getting, not what they were getting. That was the problem. But I thought I need some help. So I got in touch with all the libertarians. This is a long time ago now. This is like 40 years ago we're talking. And all the libertarians that I knew that were presentable. They put on a suit and tie and could talk properly and could understand these things and so forth, not just your usual, poor as a church mouse, but like to talk the talk, but don't walk the walk libertarians. So I called these people, and the bullshit excuses I heard were shocking. Oh, gee, I could never get 2 weeks off from the university to do this. God, that sounds kind of dangerous. I can't do it. And blah, blah, blah. And there was nobody that was up for an adventure with me to go down and talk to the same people that I talked to so they'd hear it from another person. And at that point, And I was willing to finance it myself because it was really cheap with the foreign exchange controls they had there. I mean, that country was so cheap, everything was free. And I thought I could buy full page ads in the newspaper, take out television and radio ads, sponsor conferences where guys could, because everybody speaks English down there. Dutch is the kind of the official language, but and the Indonesians, but everybody speaks English. But couldn't get it going. So that was the end of that story. That's my Suriname adventure. Anyway,
If I hadn't been 10,
I told the story.
I was 10 years old at the time, so I couldn't join you then.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, that was then. And now that Desi Bouterse has joined the ranks of the departed, the choir invisible, perhaps. I feel like I can tell this story promiscuously in public because Desi's dead. And most of the people are dead. And oddly enough, you introduced me to an ex-foreign legionnaire, French foreign legionnaire in Buenos Aires, who, oddly enough, was there at the same time I was working on another mercenary project with the Bush Negroes who were trying to separate themselves from Suriname. And do we still have the link to that? There was a movie made about his adventure in Suriname.
Yeah, I'll have to dig that up. I can include it as a link to the video at the bottom of it.
Yes, that was Oyvind. All the other guys were all ex-British SAS or whatever. And there was one other ex-French foreign legionnaire on the thing. And they made a little movie about it. And Oyvind didn't get into, or did he get into a firefight with somebody at the end? I don't remember. But anyway, we should put that there because it turned out when I met him in Buenos Aires, he was there at the same time I was. It was a wild and woolly place.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. But now they got oil, and they'll all be fighting about it like dogs over a bone, and who knows?
So the two guys though representing the opposing forces in the airport, how did they get along together?
Fine, just fine. I mean, really, it was
business.
It was just fine. I mean, like I said, they could have switched places easily or joined forces, but it didn't seem reasonable to join forces because they would have been breaking each other's rice bowl. So it was kind of like they were like friendly competitors. And I was very lucky to be there well, I know Ted is dead, and I think Patrick is dead too. So that's what happens to these guys.
Yeah, I think I've got the movie here. It's I'll share in the link to the video.
Yeah,
so
it's worthwhile watching because that was, but if I'd met Oyvind back then instead of, who knows? I mean, you take a left turn instead of a right turn at a junction, and your whole life changes. So
we wanted to talk about Argentina, and it's been a year now that Milei has been in office. And what do you think so far?
Well, most of the time that I've been here, I spent a month in BA before I came over here across the river to Punta in Uruguay. But officially, Argentina, the Argentine government, I should say, is running a surplus. So they don't have to print money to finance their surplus anymore. And this is a really big deal. And all these outfits that monitor political risk have elevated Argentina's profile. It's not considered as risky as it was. Inflation is dropping towards zero. The Argentine peso isn't losing value at 20% per month anymore, which it was. And since Milei has been fired scores of thousands of government employees and abolished agencies, and he's cutting regulations. And the best thing about it is not only was he popularly elected mostly by young people who were fed up with the economic fascism of the Argentine government, but apparently he's more popular than ever. So that I think that it's actually going to get legs, and he's going to continue and accelerate the progress. The Argentine stock market, I feel very stupid about this. Because I'm so long investments in Argentina, I said, oh, that's good. Why don't I put a bunch more money in the stock market too and get really overweight? Well, I should have, because it's up about 150% since he took over. But I think it can go a lot higher as he free marketizes this entire country. And it seems recent polls taken throughout South America seem to indicate he's the most popular guy in Latin America at this point, even more popular than Bukele in El Salvador, who is another shining light, incidentally, despite the fact, or because of the fact, that he locked up 65,000 criminals, which is a whole bunch for a little country. Just put them all in jail. Shocking, amazing. So anyway, there's marvelous things happening in Latin America against all the odds. So I guess that's how I'd sum it up. It's going to work. He's got 3 more years. He'll be reelected. This is a big deal.
One other thing I saw, I was impressed by, is that he's got, he's expanding, opening the country, allowing things to happen that wouldn't happen before. And they announced that they're going to start a SMR program there.
That's right. Argentina has 3 nuclear reactors running now, and they want to build more, especially SMRs. So, and he wants to make the place a data center, and he's good buddies with Elon Musk, who wants to, join the party.
Yep. So that just shows, though, I mean, there's been a basic prohibition on these things for my whole life, virtually. And, that I think that shows how forward thinking he is with this. And they're opening up the gas fields, allowing more production to occur, allowing more infrastructure to be built, and not just settling with that, but going, well, what else might we do to drive the economy here?
They're going to make it possible, especially for uranium mining, which he has mentioned, but also all kinds of mining in Argentina, which has been, like any business in Argentina, it's especially a business with a big capital investment up front. And no, mining was dead in Argentina because of the government. Now it's going to open up. I mean, you actually can make an investment in the country. I think Argentina is going to boom, and it's going to turn out that it's going to be one of the best places in the world to be. Its passport is going to become one of the most valuable in the world, because it'll be visa-free travel in lots of places. It's already one of the best. It's about 145 countries visa-free travel. But who knows? It could be as valuable as a Japanese or a Singapore passport in the future.
Wow.
So that's great. He's cutting taxes. I mean, you actually want to declare yourself as an Argentine resident. It's possible. Of course, they always screw these things up after a while. They get fat and rich and then backslide. Hey, we got a big pot of gold here that this guy put together for us. Why don't we have a party and put everybody on welfare again? Well, maybe. But I think we got 4 or 8 good years coming up in Argentina.
That's great. And so the thought is that maybe they can reproduce these kinds of results in the US. That's the hope anyway. And you have, the Doge team between Elon and Vivek, who say, we want to do, chainsaw the regulations and the deep state and basically mirror what Millet has been doing. And he shared with me from Alex Kreiner, he shared with you this graph that shows corporate development over the last, I guess it's 50 years in the US compared to the EU. And this shows pretty clearly the problem with regulations and how the state totally chokes off businesses. I'm not sure. Can you see that okay, Doug?
Yeah, I can see it very well. I guess everybody else can too, I presume. But this was shocking when Alex put this up on his website, showing the amount of businesses that have been created, $10 billion or more, in the US over the last 50 years. I mean, a huge number of big, successful businesses. You can see all the usual suspects, of course, Microsoft, Netflix, Amazon, Google, Meta, Apple, and lots of others. These are all big businesses, $10 billion or more. And then you look at the EU, and it's like nothing. So this is further proof that Europe is a stultified, constipated, concrete-bound socialist nightmare when it comes to business. It's nothing but old buildings that the Chinese tourists will will be able to see in the future. I'm not so sure about that anyway. They might have so much migration from the Middle East and Africa that maybe the Chinese won't want to come there anymore. I don't know, but Europe is totally screwed. And this is the proof right there. Not that the US is so great. I mean, it's way over-regulated and overtaxed, but relative to Europe, it is heaven on earth. It's amazing. That was one of the most amazing charts ever put together. So thanks to Alex for making that.
Yeah, and I think you can imagine if we had a much better regulatory regime in the US, what could happen. And I think that's the hope with what they're doing, is that you can't really fix the balance sheet on the debt side. Like, you've got these obligations, they're going to be there. You're not really going to cut them. Might be able to cut around the edges a little bit, but no one's even willing to open a discussion about Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. So basically, it's off the table. And certainly defense, I don't see that being shrunk substantially. It's hard to imagine that would be. Interest is only rising. So it's hard to, you can like trim around the edges with that, but you can't fundamentally change the game by focusing on the debt, on the outflow side of things. The thought is maybe you can change it on the inflow by restructuring what could be done in the US. And, when you talk about all the mining stuff that Millet is opening up, I look at the US, they've got tons of resources, tons of things there. And if we just were able to utilize them, if you could get a permit for something in less than 2 years or 5 years or whatever it takes, lots of things become possible. And so what are your thoughts on that? Do you think they'll be able to, do you think it's something that could be pulled off?
Yeah, that's probably the only way out. I mean, they should work towards abolishing Medicaid and Medicare so they don't exist. They should just go away. Now, of course, a lot of people have gotten used to it, and you can't break their rice bowls. Okay, I understand that's politically impossible, even if you should do it like tomorrow morning. But they could go away, as they should. Social Security should go away. Just be paid to the people that need it right now is a stupid idea. Or at worst, maybe give people individual IRAs with the Social Security money, something like that.
You just cut it off out. Say if you're 50 or younger, you don't get it. Just
no, you're not going to get it anyway. Forget about it. Chances are better the Martians are going to land on the White House lawn. No, you're not going to get it. So these things should all be abolished. And of course, the so-called defense, the military, the war budget should be cut hugely. It's just a welfare sop for the corrupt contractors in the US. So all that should happen, in addition to all these other regulatory agencies being abolished. Possible? I don't know, but they'll abolish a lot of crap in the US, maybe not the biggies. And the country could boom despite the taxes. And Trump wants to cut back the taxes and I guess make the difference up with import duties, which is really kind of a stupid idea. It really is. But basically printing money is really what he's going to wind up doing, which will create an artificial boom in a way, definitely an artificial boom. But the deregulation will give some reality to it. So, hey, there's some cause for optimism, actually. There's some cause for real optimism.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, the deregulation thing, you could see how it would, just this comparison between the EU and the US, it shows what's possible with a different regulatory regime. We know how impossible it is to do most things in the US right now. On a big scale, it's hard. You can't have a from you wanting your kid to go out and put a lemonade stand in front of your house, that violates health code and probably child labor laws and all the other
A
things.
bunch of things. Yeah.
So from that level all the way up to where you want to build a mine. So it's just impossible now. So I think that if you have to imagine if you have all these assets around you, you have all these resources around you, and you're not allowed to touch them. You're not allowed to do anything with them. You're not allowed to build anything without getting permission and approval, all the steps along the way. If those things are removed, it can unleash a wave of growth that's real growth that could make a big difference. I mean, and you see with what Milei's doing already.
Yeah, it could actually happen. It could actually work. Yeah, because most businessmen, polls that I've seen that have been taken say that, yeah, taxes are a real pain, but regulation is what really kills us. Because it's not just that you can't do things or have to do things in stupid ways with the regulation, but you have to hire lots of lawyers and accountants and consultants to comply with the regulations in addition. So the regulations are actually a bigger drain than the taxes.
I think it's
Much
true.
bigger, actually.
Well, on innovative, and if you want to innovate, if you want to invest, if you want to make big investments or you want to try something new, then they basically scare you away, scare you into not doing it. The taxes are basically taking a share of what's already been built, or what's already, maybe you might, expand, add another restaurant to your chain or something like that, but there's no new innovation, no one's going to put out new capital to do anything big and extraordinary, except the only person I'd say that has been doing that in the last several years has been Elon Musk, who's done a lot of investment at that level and is very familiar with the regulations that sort of make this all difficult. He must deal with dozens of federal regulators for all of his companies. I mean, it's certainly a dozen at least. Because he's got the FAA, the FCC. I'm sure he does the EPA with just Starlink or with SpaceX.
Oh, there's so many that he's got to get approvals from that I'm surprised that he's been able to do anything, frankly. But the guy's a force of nature, and I guess he's pretty well connected with the powers that be, or has been in the past. So
still is. Yeah.
And is once again. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's cause for optimism. So all that debt isn't going to go away. But maybe if the economy expands radically because of breakthroughs in technology, well, like with things that are happening with AI and quantum computing, you combine that with everything else, and it could boom, and the debt could become serviceable, even perhaps repayable. And of course, I think the only way it can, and it'll be inflated out of existence. But hey, that's a problem for the people that own that government debt. It's a problem for Americans who want to save too, because it's going to make it harder for them to save in dollars. But actions have consequences. It's a problem. It's got to be dealt with. But yeah, this is a potentially big deal. We could have a boom. I'm not saying that we're going to have a stock market boom. We might. Maybe we're going to have a huge stock market crash along the way, as all kinds of rice bowls are broken of people along the way. That's possible. But yeah, I feel better than I have in a long time about the economy.
Yeah, I do too. And not, I mean, everything in the financial market seems very fragile to me right now. Just feels very fragile and toppy and all that. But talking about the actual economy, I mean, you could actually see if you get rid of the regulations, things really take off. And I don't want to get into the whole thesis for that today, but you mentioned AI. That's a part of it. Robotics are a part of it. But the key is the main thing, the main indicator of this future development will come through the building of data centers. And people will, as I did for a while, wonder what the hell they're building all these data centers for. And they are building a lot of data centers, and they are massive, and they take up enormous amounts of energy. But these are the things. These are basically the underlying infrastructure of the new economy. And I didn't even, I think everyone thinks this AI stuff is kind of a, is it just a .com bubble 2.0? Is it just a pets.com or something like that? And when you look at some of the tools like ChatGPT, you might think that, but actually, and we'll talk about this another time, but I think there's some real productivity gains that are possible with it, and not just possible, but are certain, I think, with it. And if productivity goes way up, it changes everything. It's industrial revolution level stuff. So could be really
Yeah, it's gonna make it easier to design better vehicles, better aircraft, better molecules for medical use and for new material use. I mean, this could be a really big deal, and augmented especially by quantum computing, which will speed things up hugely in the next few years, and space exploration. Musk's new rockets actually make it economic to go to the moon, to go to the asteroids, and go to Mars. And it'll become economic. The lift capabilities in terms of volume and price per pound are going to collapse. This is a huge deal.
Yeah, apparently, I was looking this up. There's 10 to 12,000 tons that have been put into low Earth orbit, all in total so far by governments and private parties. 10 to 12,000 tons so far total. SpaceX is responsible for 6,200 of those tons already, and they plan to, well, at least have a capacity to put another 5,000 in 2025. So increase almost by 50% in the next year with the total amount of stuff in low Earth orbit. I just wonder, what's he putting up there?
That's right. Space exploration has gone exponential at this point.
Right. And we'll see that across the board with a lot of things that people that are going to come out of nowhere, including the robotics. They're mass producing these bipedal robots that are pretty amazing. They're like $12,000. You can get one from China. Plus that, and you might think, oh, Chinese, it's crap. It's not. I mean, I would abandon that old frame of reference about their stuff being lower quality. But $12,000.
It's like after World War II, people used to make fun about everything made in Japan was actually a joke. It was a joke. People say, hey, it's like it's made in Japan, which meant crap. Well, just the opposite now. Same thing with China.
Exactly. And but imagine, I mean, if I think about even just here on the farm, we've got a couple of staff that help us with different things, moving the cattle, taking care of the ground, stuff like that. Well, I mean, I could buy one of these robots. It can do a lot. I mean, a lot. And you train it, you demonstrate it, and it learns it, and then it's got it. And for $12,000 or $13,000 each. I mean, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. And this stuff's only going to get way better over time.
Exponentially better. It's actually, these things are going to be as capable as Terminators in the movies. They really are.
It won't take long. I mean, physically, a lot of them already are as capable as Terminator. It's just the processing that's the missing link, and the processing, there's a plan. It's there for how this is achieved. And as soon as that's done, as soon as that's out there, which requires more data centers, you're going to see these things actually being as scary as Terminator or as unbelievably amazing as Terminators in the positive way.
That's right. And they'll become biosimilar too, which is going to have huge sociological consequences especially since certainly when it comes to American women, nobody wants to date them anymore because they're all so PC and so lawsuit liable at these. This is going to, I think we're right now at and new nuclear power plants are being built everywhere because there's no other way to get all the power, quite frankly. So this is quite amazing.
Yeah. Actually, we should have Porter come on to talk about it because he and I have been bouncing back and forth. The thesis around this idea, trying to get it dialed in so everyone can understand it and it can be explained well. And he's a great storyteller, so he'll do a great job of helping our viewers understand it. But my back of the envelope math is that these data centers by 2030 will consume 20% of U.S. electrical production. 20%, which means we need a massive increase in the amount of electricity we're producing, and we need it extremely fast. And that's where you'll see the flood of investment going into the US to support that. And I'm telling you, it can't be stopped. People know know the benefit of having it, the productivity gains that'll come out of it. And even if there is a financial crisis, an economic collapse, Trump will have this works project to do all this stuff, just like FDR did, during the Great Depression. So it's coming no matter what. So I think it's important to get ready for it.
Yeah, at the same time as World War III is still building momentum in one form or another. So this is actually really exciting times. And the financial part of this, the Greater Depression, that hasn't gone away. The dropping standard of living of the average guy, which with all these things in the short run could be accelerated because a lot of shit jobs people are going to get fired from because they're not needed. Well, what are they going to do? Now, we're going to need a supercomputer to crunch all the numbers, more than our magic 8-ball to predict the future at this point.
Well, I mean, I think, the Industrial Revolution made slavery uneconomic. And I think this is going to make paid labor, the vast majority of it, uneconomic as well. That's what's going to come out of this. So that is going to be super disruptive in a way that I don't think it's difficult to imagine at this stage.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like the old IBM motto, which I don't think is their motto anymore. It's machines should work, people should think. So
it's going to be
maybe,
the machines will be able to think well too, though, unfortunately.
No, that is a problem. Will critical thinking actually be reinstituted as a modus operandi in universities? I don't know. Most of these universities should be flushed, so that's possible, I guess. But maybe the world population will start dropping radically, like it has in the Orient, in Japan, and especially Korea, where the average woman is only having, 1.2 children in her lifetime, which means the population every few generations cuts in half, more or less.
That trend seems to be everywhere in the world at this stage, with just a few exceptions.
Just a few exceptions, and that might change too. Yeah, this is absolutely fascinating and exciting. And in the meantime, what everybody should remember and try to do is to build your personal capital base and personal expertise base as thoroughly as possible so that you can profit from these things and aren't left behind.
It's super important. If you want to know, we'll be talking more about these issues in crisis investing. So if you want to follow the newsletter, go to crisisinvesting.com and sign up, and we'll try and help.
Yeah, you should. No, people really should. I mean, listen, I actually don't care about the money. Everybody wants more money. Everybody wants to be financially successful, but or more successful. It doesn't matter what you have. You want more. Everybody wants more. And we can talk about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing philosophically, but I think that all of our viewers ought to join these files that we've set up so that you can relate to other like-minded people, which is critical.
Yeah. Files are a private member community. We've got about 1,000 people in there from all over the world. Some great relationships have come out of that. Spend a lot of time with people in there. And you get to be part of the private member community when you subscribe to Crisis Investing. So go subscribe, you'll get access. I think you'll love it. It's great.
Can't hurt, and it's really cheap, and it's a good thing for everybody. So
it is. We had some file members over for Christmas, actually. So yeah, it's a good thing.
I don't feel bad about putting a commercial in here, because this is one of the shameful things about anti-capitalistic thinking, is that you're supposed to be intellectually distant as opposed to telling people about what they can do and what you can offer. And if you're going to offer anything, there has to be a fair exchange. Anyway, I think it's fine to promote these things.
I don't feel bad about it at all. So no. And if you're watching this video and you're offended by it somehow, you can go fuck yourself.
Well, that's right. You don't belong here.
Exactly.
So please go away.
Exactly. See you later. All right, Doug, we'll leave it here for now. Have a good weekend. We'll be back next week with some more. Hopefully I can get Giant to join us early next week or mid next week so we can hear his take on the H-1B visa issue.
Yeah, and also coming up, you said we'll have our old friend Frank Giustra, who is kind of like one of the world's leading lights when it comes to mining finance.
Yep, got him. And Porter told me he would join us too, Porter Stansberry. So I'll get him to talk about this future thesis.
Yeah, we have quite a schedule here for the new year. It'll be quite interesting, I think, to talk with all these guys.
Absolutely. All right, Doug. Well, thanks very much. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Matt. You too.